Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday. I know that I plan on it, and with this holiday weekend coming up, I hope you all have a blessed time with your family. This is Lori LeBay, the host and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks, and for those of you that aren't familiar with us, because our listenership is constantly growing out there, I just want to give you a little background before we roll into the formal part of the show. Alzheimer's Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. We truly believe by joining forces and sharing knowledge and having just those everyday conversations about life with dementia that we can remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and help those in the trenches take back their lives and live with purpose. Together, we can help everyone understand the true needs of this disease, not just the myths and the stigmas that are out there in the world. At our core, we believe collaboratively we can win this battle against dementia. And I know we're making a difference thanks to all of our supporters on all of our platforms, because we were honored to be named the #1 influencer on the Internet regarding Alzheimer's by ShareCare Now and Dr. Oz. So again, I am just filled with gratitude to all of our listeners for you helping us share the word, because Alzheimer's Speaks is not about me, the founder, at all. This is about all of us. This is about creating that unity through community, and ways that you can help in terms of being an advocate can be really simple. When you're sitting listening right now, just hit that share button if you're listening via your computer. Go ahead and tweet it. You can email the episode, share it on Facebook, and so many other platforms out there. All of those things make a huge difference. It may be a silent one that you think, but it really has a large impact. So again, I thank you all. If you haven't checked out our resource website, I would also encourage you to do that. That's just at alzheimersspeaks.com. There you'll have access to all of our platforms. The dementia chats, if you're not familiar with those, in fact, we just did one the other day. I would highly recommend that you check that out. We had Dina Dotson, Steve Poneth, and Michael Eckenbogen on there, and it was just a fantastic conversation. Those are free. We do those twice a month, and it's an interview where not only do I ask questions, but our audience also asks the experts living with dementia questions, and it's so enlightening. We also have a blog that has a variety of information from stories to research, gathering people all around the world, because, again, at our core, we are about sharing knowledge. And then if you're ever looking for speakers or trainers, we have that information. And we're in the process of building the resource directory, which is a collaborative piece where, again, you can join in and share the information that you found helpful and share it with others. Now, today, I don't know if our channel expert living with Alzheimer's will be able to join us or not, but if Rick Phelps, who is the founder of Memory People on Facebook, is available, I'll definitely pull him into the conversation. Rick was diagnosed in June of 2010, and he's just done a wonderful job with his community on Facebook, which is a place where people can gather in a safe, closed group and have a conversation. And this is for not just people with dementia, but their care partners, both family and professionals, as well as advocates. So I also want to just mention, if you want to join the conversation, there's two ways to be able to do that. One, you can utilize the chat box if you signed in through Facebook and just pose your question or comment. And as there's a break in the conversation, I will pull that in. Second is you can call in live to the show, and that number is 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. And then you'll be asked to push 1 to get into my queue. That way I'll know that you're there. So one last announcement I do want to make is Alzheimer's Disease International, known as ADI, is having their annual conference this April, the 18th through the 20th in China. And if you're not familiar with Alzheimer's Disease International, I highly recommend that you check them out as well. They're doing some fascinating things, pulling people in all around the globe. So with no further ado, let's get the show rocking and rolling here, because we've got a great guest with us today, and I'm just highly honored to have George Vradenburg with us. And George is the chairman and the co-founder of US Against Alzheimer's Network and US Against Alzheimer's, which is a 501(c)(3) and C4, which is an education and advocacy network and campaign committed to educating and mobilizing America to stop Alzheimer's by 2020. George has launched the SPRINT Agenda, which is a public and private effort to accelerate the therapeutic pipeline from basic research for Alzheimer's therapies in the market. Through US Against Alzheimer's Network, George has also brought together powerful voices to escalate the fight against Alzheimer's as the convener of the Alzheimer's Leaders Engaged on Alzheimer's Disease, or known as LEAD. And this is a network of major Alzheimer's serving organizations, from nonprofits to foundations, academics, corporations, and the government sector. George has also testified before Congress about the global Alzheimer's pandemic, and he is serving on the National Alzheimer's Advisory Council, which was the first of its kind, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful program, really developing a strategic plan to attack Alzheimer's disease. George has also helped to conceive and support the Alzheimer's Study Group and the Alzheimer's Disease International World Alzheimer's Report. Through his foundation, George and his wife, Trish, have also launched and chaired the National Alzheimer's Gala, and for 8 years they've raised over $10 million for the Alzheimer's Association. So this is one powerful man who really walks his talk. And so I'm just thrilled to have you with us, George. Welcome to the show.
Well, Lori, thank you for having me on.
Well, it's fascinating. When I was reading over your bio, I could talk about you all day long because you've done so many things. And so I, first of all, have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you are doing. But for our listeners, I always like to start out with, how did you get on this journey? What brought you such passion to really be a leading force to change what's happening with Alzheimer's disease?
Well, my wife's mother died of the disease in the early 90s, and while I was still in the commercial world, I'm out of the business sector, did not have time. But after I retired, and right after the turn of the century, had the time to pursue what she and I shared as a passion to stop this disease. So we started by raising money, as you noted, with the National Alzheimer's Gala, but fairly quickly we're dissatisfied that one night a year wasn't enough, and so we got involved with Newt Gingrich and former Senator Bob Kerrey to form the Alzheimer's Study Group and to recommend a national plan to the government. and that wasn't enough. So we formed Leaders Engaged in Alzheimer's Disease as a private sector mega community, believing firmly, just as you've articulated, that defeating Alzheimer's is going to be a team sport. It's not going to be an individual. It's not going to be a single organization. It's going to be the mobilization of the American people. So we started that organization, and then we formed our PAC because we're politically active as donors as well as passionate believers in, actually I'm a Republican, she's a Democrat, but we still believe jointly that the issues confronting our country are important and that people ought to be involved. Then we went to Congress and actually working with the association got NAPA passed, the National Alzheimer's Project Act, which would require the government to create a national strategic plan. And we formed the organization in the C3 and the C4 and the PAC in 2010, and with the view that if we could get the government to commit to a strategic plan and hopefully a time-based goal by which they would, find a means of prevention and effective treatment, that we could then get other sectors of society behind that goal and start working towards that goal rather than simply trying to pursue business as usual. Because we shared a real passion, a real sense of urgency, a real belief that we needed more urgency in this movement, not less, more passion in the movement, more anger in the movement to stop this disease, that too many people were being affected, too many families financially, emotionally, and otherwise adversely impacted, seriously adversely impacted by this disease, that we ought to get angry. We ought to get engaged and enraged about the lack of pace and attention and focus at the national level to this disease. And, of course, this is a global problem, so we've begun to work around the world in a variety of ways. But we work through networks. The notion that defeating this disease is a team sport. We work on the view that we need to work through coalitions and networks. So we've convened Leaders Engaged in Alzheimer's Disease, as you've noted. That's now 57 Alzheimer's serving organizations across the full spectrum, from research to care, and across all the sectors from government to for-profit and non-for-profit. We formed now a global CEO initiative on Alzheimer's, bringing the business sector to the national goal of stopping the disease by 2025. And we've about to launch a women's initiative because women are two-thirds the victims and almost two-thirds the caregivers and disparately impacted seriously by this disease and have a very legitimate and historically they've demonstrated a very powerful voice for critical issues that confront the American families. And an African-American network against Alzheimer's, which will start as well this spring because that community, strikingly, is disparately impacted by the disease, since blacks seem to, for some reason, have twice the incidence of the disease as whites. And we will start later this year Hispanics Against Alzheimer's, because that community is adversely affected as well. So major mobilization of the American people to assure that our political leaders, our business leaders, and our scientific leaders stay on the track of stopping this disease by 2025, or we would hope even earlier, getting a disease-modifying drug on the market by 2020 and effectively preventing this disease or treating it by 2025. So we're just one of millions of families who've been affected by the disease. And we need to find, and your show is so powerful in doing this, we need to bring all of us together in vehicles that can express the shared anger, frustration, and engage us jointly in this battle to create a movement around this, not an organization, not just one network, but a movement to stop this disease.
I totally am in line with what you're saying, because everyone always says Alzheimer's is different in every person, but it's different for every family, every care partner, every community, And it really, it is a matter of pulling us all back together. And I think, to me, one of the big pieces in terms of doing that, and I love how you've broken down these sectors and built these communities for corporate and women and African Americans and Hispanics that you're doing. But I really think it's all about connecting the true voice of the disease, or what I call emotional-based training or talk, just having that normal, everyday conversation where it's safe to have, and removing the embarrassment and the stigmas, that we can get it out of the closet and get really people chatting about this openly so that they feel comfortable and safe in terms of having the conversation. And I think that's one of the problems that people are facing, especially in corporate America. If they're caring for someone, or maybe someone has been diagnosed or is thinking that they have problems, they don't feel safe because they don't want to lose their job because of the impact of this. And there's just such a huge ripple effect with this disease. So kudos for all you are doing in terms of this movement. What are some of the biggest challenges or roadblocks that you see that we're facing today when it comes to Alzheimer's disease?
Well, I guess I put my finger on like 3 or 4 points. So the one that you mentioned, I think, is right at the top of the list, and that is the stigma associated with talking about the disease, the apprehension that people will think you're stupid or crazy or decrepit if, in fact, there's something the matter with your mind. And the answer is no, this is a disease. It's a disease that's attacking you. It's something external. It's not some moral failing. It's not some lack of intelligence. It's not nothing more than cancer and HIV/AIDS, which their periods of time were the subject of a great deal of stigma. But just like those diseases, when we began to talking about them, recognizing how many people were affected by them, and sharing our stories and sharing with neighbors and friends and in trusted ways, talking about it, we began to come out and we began to mobilize as a people around those diseases. And we've made progress against cancer, at least many forms of cancer, not all yet, but great progress. We've certainly made progress in being able to manage HIV/AIDS and obviously working towards a vaccine. We need to do the same kind of movement-building, anti-stigma stuff that we've done with those diseases around this one. So that's number one. Number two is a huge resource problem. Because we're sort of a late comer in terms of recognition as disease, we are way underinvested in the basic science research monies that we need. Cancer, we declared a war on cancer in 1971 with Nixon, and then it has built, the resources against cancer have been built over the years, and now we're at $6 billion a year. Cardiovascular disease is in the range of $3 to $4 billion, cardiovascular and stroke. HIV/AIDS is a $3 billion a year investment, and Alzheimer's is $500 million or less, and of course the sequester is affecting us all adversely. But we're way underinvested as a nation in the basic research. Now, it's turning out that other nations around the world, from Western Europe to Israel to Asia, who are seeing the same problem in their societies as we are in ours, which is aging and the chronic diseases of aging, and Alzheimer's is at the top of those, are investing more and more resource into basic science, and America's share of basic science spending is going to be declining in the coming years. But we need to assure that those global resources that may be spent and invested against this disease are coordinated and linked. So resources are sort of the second large thing, I would say. Third, we have a very sluggish drug development process. It takes 13 years, $1 billion a drug to get a drug to market, and that's because our clinical trial process is slow. We don't have good biomarkers, which are sort of biological evidence of the disease, of the progress of the disease before symptoms appear. And by the time symptoms appear, typically the brain may receive so much damage that you can't treat it or reverse it. We have a very sluggish way of clinical trial recruitment. People are not participating in clinical trials. So one of the efforts that we're undertaking is to try and find mechanisms where we can get American corporations behind the notion of going to their employees and pointing out the availability of clinical trials for their loved ones, or even without symptoms themselves. So that's sort of the third. So stigma, resource, and a sluggish clinical trial system. As I say, this is a global problem. So our coalition of companies launched about 2 weeks ago in Europe and called for a global Alzheimer's action plan with global funding mechanisms, a global research agenda, a global drug development process, greater coordination among regulatory agencies in Europe, the United States, and Asia, so that we can address all of these problems of stigma and a resource and clinical trial sluggishness and regulatory processes. So you put your finger on the first one, stigma. We've got to get people to talk about it.
It's amazing the cost and the process for those drugs. I was talking with Dr. Donald Moss, who he went over to Mexico, and he's got something he feels is pretty promising, and he's like, you wouldn't believe the cost difference in terms of getting these trials through. And, he's worried his patent runs out, I think, in a few more years. But he's like, I just don't have the money to back it here, but our results have been fantastic. But he just said you feel so tied, with your hands. And he's written just a marvelous book explaining kind of the process, because I don't think people truly understand, what's going on and why this is so critical. I mean, the numbers are just going through the roof. And if you want to think it's going to be somebody else, that's fine. But the chances are you could be next. I mean, we don't really have a clue what's causing this disease. There's a lot of things that, people are talking about what you can do to prevent, but, there is no sure thing, and it doesn't know any boundaries in terms of who it's going to attack next. And so we really have to get people thinking in the mindset of how if I'm walking in these shoes and the odds are I could be, what do I want this to be like? And we have to start looking at that today in order to fix it tomorrow. And we've got to be able to help these people who, can't wait 13 years. Like you said, it's so devastating. And so I like the idea of, trying to be able to get this cause mobilized and get people backing it like we have for cancer and diabetes and heart disease and HIV, and get the funds behind it, because this is just an invisible disease that people don't realize, what's happening. When I did the Dementia Chats, the webinar platform the other day, I made the comment, and there was 3 people with dementia and myself, and I said, now, if somebody just popped this up on their computer, they would have no idea who had dementia. Not a clue. Right. You can't tell. And so it's, that's what we have to really, help people, get them educated, and the businesses on how they can improve life as well for those living with dementia or caring for somebody, with Alzheimer's disease. There's so many things that even restaurants and banks and corporations can do, not only for their employees in terms of being supportive if they've got family or friends dealing with this, but in terms of their service provisions, there's a lot of things they can do in their delivery systems that could make life so much easier and less frustrating for their employees when they run across certain situations as well. So I
think you're absolutely right. I think we need to bring people together, and I do think American corporations, for a variety of reasons, should be stepping up and doing more. I think to destigmatize this disease by talking about it in the corporate context and being clear about the privacy with which a corporation would treat any diagnosis or detection, how your disability policies apply to those who might be detected or diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. The numbers aren't so great that corporations will be bankrupted if they were very liberal in applying their disability policies for those that were early affected. For those in the post-retirement age, we, in theory, have a Medicare and Medicaid system that would deal with long-term service costs, although I've now been appointed to the Long-Term Care Commission because I don't think that's really adequate. So the early onset population is one that we have to be very attentive to because it's significant, and with increasing power of early diagnosis, it will grow. But it's not going to grow so big, I don't believe, that American corporations shouldn't treat it with respect and with compassion, as opposed to sort of like hiding it and trying to get rid of people before the diagnosis occurs so that they can't benefit from disability policies or other policies that might provide some financial support for those who can't work but not at retirement age.
Well, and so many corporations, they go to the liability portion first, which I understand and I totally respect. But many times, there could be maybe a job share, or people could be put in different positions that wouldn't be as high of liability risk to them. I had one person in our memory cafe who was let go from a volunteer position because the park was worried on how he handled something, and it's like all they had to do was partner him with somebody, still let him have purpose and be involved, because he's a great guy, wonderful skills, totally engaged, but in certain situations there's assistance that's needed, and two minds can be better than one. So looking at the power behind the people with dementia, I think hopefully as people get more educated and hear their voice of this younger person, maybe that will change things a bit. And with that, George, I'm going to go ahead and pull in Michael Ellenbogen because he is here. And Michael, how are you doing today?
Good. How about yourself, Lori?
Not too bad. I see that you called in, and I thought, well, this is a perfect time to pull you into the conversation. Did you have a comment that you wanted to make or a question?
Yeah, I was actually calling because I wanted to actually say something about George, if I may.
Sure.
I've actually come to know George because we've worked on a few projects together, and I must say that I could not be any prouder to have him as a friend and to represent people like myself with dementia. I know in business sometimes we become very frustrating because, you try to do good and a lot of people just don't give you the recognition that you deserve. I've had the opportunity to deal with people who are world leaders in the dementia field, and I got to tell you, George stands out above the rest. He's been an out-of-box thinker, a visionary type person. He's always willing to listen and try new things that will benefit the cause. What I like most about him, well, maybe two things. He's willing to work with anyone and all organizations, and he sets his political differences aside and agendas aside for the greater good of the cause. Second, if you ever seen him speak at Napa, you would know he speaks so eloquently. He gets a point across while challenging others to do more, and that's so helpful to people like myself. That's a true gift, and that is one that only comes from his business background, which makes him stand out. I don't want to say that both George, I also want to say, I guess, that both George and Harry John, who's also on Napa, makes the people really come up with some great solutions for the caregivers and people living with this disease. And, I know we all have mentors in our life, and I got to tell you, George has become my mentor for this stage of my life. So I'd like to thank him for everything he's done.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thank you very much for that, Michael. Michael is a person that sort of exemplifies what we were just talking about. Here's a skilled corporate executive who got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and clearly has the ability to perform inside business, not perhaps in the same job that he had before, the same role, but clearly could perform. And I think corporations are a little afraid of this disease because they don't understand it. It's like they think somehow people with Alzheimer's are crazy. Well, Michael sort of stands out as Exhibit A of somebody who has Alzheimer's, certainly is not crazy and highly competent, and certainly is skilled and could do a fine job in a corporation, perhaps not at the senior level of corporate life that he lived before, but in a different role. And so, what we need to get is corporations who are willing, as you put it, Lori, to say, okay, they're not going to be CEO, maybe, but hey, they can do mentoring, they can do service provision, they can do a lot of jobs that are very valuable and rewarding inside corporate life, and so finding ways to get corporations to begin to accommodate themselves to the notion that people with early onset Alzheimer's are perfectly capable of performing a very satisfying and important role in corporate life, and it's simply a matter of working with them to decide exactly what that role is, I think is important, and Michael's Exhibit A of that.
I totally agree, and I think, the more we can raise their voice, and that's, one of the goals of Alzheimer's Speaks, is to raise everybody's voice, and that includes those with dementia and those caring for them, or, those that just want to learn more. Hopefully that will shift things. I think Michael was part of the dementia chat and is going to continue to be as long as the schedule accommodates it. And we are I get emails and calls all the time that this is changing families' lives, being able to oversee these conversations and partake in them, because a lot of times they can't ask a question. People are using them for support groups. They're using them for training sessions. Doctors have said, oh, my gosh, I never learned so much, because these questions are being posed. And I think if we can get corporations to do these, maybe even a lunch and learn type thing, the view will change and everyone will, hopefully remove that scariness behind this disease. I'd love to see it get into the school systems because the teenagers and the kids are being affected by this, and they want to know how to help as well. And they're going to need to know how to get involved, with this. And, they're the next ones coming up in the ranks. So very, very, I think, powerful voices out there. And it's so nice that you two have connected and have this relationship and are working together on such a fantastic cause. So I thank you for calling in, Michael.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Okay, thanks. There's one other caller I'd like to take here, and then I want to get back because I want to make sure that we cover everything that we had on our agenda here. I've got somebody from an 865 number. You're live on the air. Did you have a question or a comment?
Hey, Lori, this is Linda Everman. I just wanted you
Linda.
and George to know that I'm listening in, and I loved Michael's comments. I second everything that he said about George. As a former caregiver and an Alzheimer's advocate, I'm so grateful that George and Trish are not willing to accept business as usual. And I know that with your leadership, George, that we will find a cure for Alzheimer's. So you know that you have my support and my gratitude. Thank you. And thank you, Lori.
Well, thank you, Linda. Appreciate the call in. And Linda has a Facebook page called Stamp Out Alzheimer's, so you can go ahead and feel free to visit her there as well. Anything you wanted to add, George?
No, I mean you've got the some of the really forceful activists in this movement in your listenership, and I think that's terrific. It reinforces us, makes us feel that we're not alone as we do battle, because frequently we're fighting, either ignorance or stigma or lackadaisical or business as usual or, gee, I don't have time. To have this kind of reinforcing element of what you do with this show is just terrific.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know what? I'm going to take one other caller here because they've been on the line for a bit here. This is a 646 number. I'm going to just get you live here. 646, you are now live. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Lori. Hi, George. This is Lisa Hirsch.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
Hi. So, I'm listening to everything that you're saying, George and Lori, and in agreement and frustrated and thankful that we're all trying to do something. So, George, I came out with a book recently, and 10% of my earned profits are going to US Against Alzheimer's. I've been working with you people on that. So,
thank you so very much for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved very much in New York with the Alzheimer's Association, the walk, and this, and I give money. But I have so much respect for everything that US Against Alzheimer's has been doing. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
Lori, keep up the great work.
Yep, you too, and thanks for calling in, Lisa. Very much appreciated.
Thanks.
And best of luck with your book. And what's the name of the book? Is it?
It's My Mom, My Hero.
Okay, My Mom, My Hero. I was like, I didn't want to mispronounce or misstate it. So wonderful. So check that out, folks. I'm sure it's a wonderful book. I have not personally read it, but Lisa does just such a wonderful job and is such an advocate. I can't imagine it's not full of great insights that will help people on this journey. So thank you for calling in, Lisa.
And it's available on Amazon and Kindle all over. Okay?
Okay. Great.
The more books I sell, the more money I can give to US Against.
Okay.
Have a great day. Thanks,
buy
everyone.
the book.
Buy the book.
Okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye-bye.
George, can you talk to us a little bit about how the sequester impacted the research community and what your thoughts are along that line?
Well, it impacts it in two very important and reinforcing ways, adversely. First, it immediately cuts back on the amount of money that the NIH has to invest in new projects. And it's particularly difficult because about two-thirds of the money that the NIH gets every year is actually allocated to multi-year grants, and those are going to be honored. So that means that new grants are really getting squeezed. So even as NIH's budget's being cut by about 8%, that means that new grants are being cut by perhaps twice that level. And we're already seeing researchers reporting into us that their research grants are coming in at 10% lower than they'd requested, and that they're getting haircutted all over the place, so that it's having an almost immediate impact on the size and number of new grants that the NIH is able to invest in. So that's danger number one, and that's severe, and that's urgent, and that's right now. The longer-term problem is that bright young people are going to get discouraged from going into the biomedical field, and particularly into the field that deals with the brain, because the amount of money being spent for Alzheimer's, since we're underinvested against cancer and HIV/AIDS and heart and other diseases, that means that young people in medical school today who are thinking about going into research are going to say to themselves, well, I'm not going to go into Alzheimer's research, I'm going to go over here to cancer, or I'm not going to go into research at all because I'm seeing research budgets getting cut across the board. So there's a real long-term danger that we're going to weaken our entire biomedical research system in significant ways across the board, but particularly with respect to those diseases like Alzheimer's where they're underinvested. So it's real, it's right now, and it's potentially, unless we shift our priorities pretty quickly, has the possibility of really eroding our capacity long term.
Oh, that's really spooky. That is really, really spooky.
Now, we ought to say something about hope here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that we can't leave the impression that everything is a disaster. There are basic research discoveries being made around the world every day, and we see reports if one actually gets clips and puts Alzheimer's in it, and we get these daily here, and that's actually on our website, USAgainstAlzheimer's.org. You will see that there are basic discoveries that are occurring in labs around the world that are providing each a little new discovery provides a little more insight into what the underlying pathology of this disease is and what potentially might be targets for future treatments. And the other thing is that companies, notwithstanding the fact that we had two very important failures in phase 3 trials last year, companies are continuing to invest in the field. And I was a bit fearful that people would just pull out until we got the basic science questions answered. But they're not pulling out. They're continuing to invest. Now, that reflects the fact that the Alzheimer's disease condition is a huge market, which is sort of the good news in terms of their investment incentives, bad news on the part of us, because that just means more people have the disease or risk for the disease. But companies are continuing to invest. And I am reasonably confident that we're going to have a disease-modifying drug on the market by about 2017, maybe a year before, a year after. Now, that first disease-modifying drug is going to be probably not as effective as we would like. It's going to slow the rate of decline for those that have the disease in its earliest stages. So it's not going to be able to address the problems of people in moderate to later stage disease. And it's probably not going to be appropriate for people that don't have any cognitive impairments at all, that is, as a prevention measure. But what it will do is that it will be targeted at those populations who have the very earliest signs of the disease and have other biological hallmarks of the disease, like beta amyloid or tau buildup. And it will be, as I say, not satisfying, but there will be a first-generation drug on the market, I'm reasonably confident, by 2020. The FDA has just issued draft guidance, which makes it fairly clear that they're trying to find ways to accelerate getting disease-modifying drugs against Alzheimer's to the market as soon as they can. So they're signaling that they're ready when the companies deliver a solid, safe, and effective drug, that they're ready to accelerate the process of review and clearance. The system is beginning to adjust. Investments continue to be made, basic science discoveries being made around the world, including here in the United States, but increasingly around the world, and drug investments still being made, and the FDA and a European agency as well, leaning forward in terms of their receptivity to accelerating the review and, if a drug is safe and effective, approval of an Alzheimer's drug. So while I tell you that 2016, 2017, so 3 to 4 years away, that's terribly frustrating. But on the other hand, it's not so bleak that we're not seeing anything on the horizon. And so that's why we have to keep the pedal to the metal as people, as mobilized movement, as engaged and enraged citizens, to make sure the companies stay on the case, the basic research labs continue their pursuit, that we develop greater resources for them, and that we and get regulatory agencies ready to approve, and the Medicare system ready to reimburse, so that in fact we get something to the market fast, that the industry sees that in fact the system is ready to support it and support them if they come forward with these drugs, and so that we get follow-on and get a second-generation drug and a third-generation drug, and by 2025 get a means of prevention and effective treatment.
Well, that's wonderful. You're so on top of this. It amazes me how you can even keep it all straight. So again, I just appreciate all you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about the government put in this National Alzheimer's Plan Act, and can you talk a little bit about the goal of the organization and what the status of the plan is right now? And
sure. The National Plan to Address Alzheimer's was adopted in May of 2012, last year. It incorporated as its first goal the goal of finding a means of prevention and effective treatment of Alzheimer's by 2025. The second goal was to improve the dementia capabilities of the clinical system, that is doctors and nurses and hospitals, to be able to detect, recognize, diagnose, and better manage the population with Alzheimer's, because so many people, there's so few geriatricians in this country, so few experts, and so little training of basic nursing staff at hospitals or doctors' offices, or of basic doctors to actually be able to detect cognitive impairments and then to be sufficiently both sensitive in recognizing early signs and sufficiently wise to understand when diagnosis is appropriate and sufficiently attuned to this notion of stigma so that they know how to have a conversation with somebody who may be showing early signs of cognitive impairment. Because doctors are a bit afraid of this. They don't understand it. Many doctors think they don't want to even have a conversation about it because there's not much you can do once a patient has been diagnosed with the disease. So the whole clinical system needs to become more dementia-friendly. And the third goal was to create a long-term care system that was much more dementia-capable because we have nursing homes and long-term assisted living facilities and in-home care support systems which really are not supportive of caregivers. We don't give caregivers the informal family member who does not know how to handle the behaviors or really have an understanding of what to expect, how to get respite care. We don't provide respite care support for caregivers. So the whole system of support for the caregivers and for people with Alzheimer's in the long-term settings, whether it be home or community settings or in institutional settings, simply is not dementia smart. And we're not paying our sort of in-home care support system, the companion services or more intimate personal care services. We don't pay them a living wage, so they're not trained, and so the whole long-term care system needs support. So that's research and goal of 2025, the clinical system, having a clinical system that recognizes and knows how to deal with the disease in its earliest stages, and a long-term care system. There's a fourth goal around stigma reduction and general education and awareness, and a fifth goal around being able to monitor our progress against the first four goals and understanding the economic impact of the disease. So the NAPA plan had 5 goals. As I say, stopping the disease by 2025, improve the clinical system, improve the long-term care system, reduce stigma and educate the American population about the disease, and then monitor our own progress in attacking this disease. Now, that was adopted in May of 2012. There were some implementation steps that were set out in the original plan, and there is an annual update that Secretary Sebelius is obliged to do every year and to report to Congress and to report to the public on an update. So there will, in May of this year, be an update to that plan. The plan may get adjusted in slight ways, although the basic goals, I doubt, will change very much. But the implementation steps may get more refined and more detailed. We, as an advisory council, the 12 private sector members who sit on an advisory body, have strongly urged that with respect to these goals, there be milestones so that if we're talking about a goal of 2025, we know what we have to do in 2013 and 14 and 15 and 16 to get there, so that we don't just sort of sit here and wait for 2025 to occur, but we've actually adjusted the system in terms of our research priorities and our drug development programs in ways that will assure that we're on course to get there. And similarly for the other goals, that we ought to have some milestones in terms of the improvement in the clinical care and long-term care system. So that's what we're looking for in May. And, of course, we don't know what exactly Secretary Sebelius is going to do, but that's what the Advisory Council has urged her to do. And that will be updated every year.
Well, it was so nice to see, and it's nice to see that you're working on a global effort as well. You know, I've been on this journey 30 years with my mom and her memory loss. She started in her mid-50s at my age. And, one of the things that I got so frustrated with was not seeing the resources that I needed or not even knowing what resources were available. And I think that that's such a struggle still for people, not knowing where they can go and what's available. And I think it needs to be on a holistic basis. From all avenues of life, because this disease affects every inch of your life, and it's not just medical related. And being able to find those social connections, for me, it's been amazing. You know, my work is primarily through social media or live engagements, and the connections that are made and the information that's shared and the support that's given, it just fascinates me constantly because people understand and they want to help, and just the memory cafes, these little simple concepts of bringing people together who are like-minded and like situations so that they can develop friendships and have a peer group. Those are huge, huge things to people in the trenches that aren't normally always looked at, and people don't want to be looked at as needing support. They really just want to be able to live their life with different services. And so I think sometimes even the terms that we use need to be changed in talking more openly in terms of the people's language versus maybe the academic language all the time, because we speak different languages, even though we might in the U.S. primarily all be English. We use different jargon, and it gets so confusing to those dealing with things. Or when services are made available, this is one of the, I think, most frustrating things for caregivers is a real simple thing to change is stop sending them always to your home page and then having to dig for the service. If you're giving them a link to a specific thing, give them a link to the right page, because people don't have the time. And sometimes people with dementia don't have the ability to surf and do the digging to find it. We just, those little changes can be huge for people in terms of how we connect with one another and share resources with that. I think it'll be really exciting to see how this national plan goes forward. Now, is there anybody currently on that plan that has Alzheimer's disease or dementia?
No. Actually, the 12 members from the private sector were delineated by statute, and there was nothing in the statute that called for a person with Alzheimer's. I think both the association and I feel very strongly, and I think we have a good deal of support from HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, to put a person with dementia on the advisory council. How we will work that through, given the statutory limitations on who is supposed to be on that council, is another question. But there's clearly, as you'd say with a little p, political support. There's support for putting a person with Alzheimer's on the council, because I think that we're all sort of well motivated, but our motivations is very often not fully informed by the experience of an actual Alzheimer's victim, and that's a real weakness in terms of the deliberations of the council and the perspectives of the people on the council. We talk to those people in other contexts, as Michael Ellenbogen has mentioned, but that's not satisfactory. We ought to have a voice there of a person with Alzheimer's, and I think there's a real possibility that could occur as the terms of some of the members of this council and half of the private sector members, 6 of them, were given 2-year terms, and half were given 4-year terms. And so those, and the terms started, don't get me specific on the dates, but it was I believe, in May or middle of 2011. Or maybe it was the fall of 2011. It was sometime in 2011. So we're going to have half of the private sector members who are going to be termed. Now, they could be reappointed, but there is probably going to be only some reappointments and some new members. And so it really will present an opportunity somewhat later this year for a person with Alzheimer's to be appointed. And I know Harry Johns and I share this view, and we'll press very hard for that to occur.
Yeah, I think there's one position coming up in May, and I think 4 or so in September, if I remember correctly, through that.
Thank you. You're more informed than I am.
Change. Yeah. Well, I had a couple.
One of the current members, Eric Hall of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, who resigned his position there at AFA, because that position was designated for a person from a state-based foundation-like entity, he has left, and there is that opening. So there's an opening right now, but by statute it should be going to someone with in a national organization with a care-oriented aspect to it, which is where the AFA fit. So there'll be nominations for that position. But I do think the next position up may be more ripe for, it will probably be in a caregiver category or someone who can speak for caregivers, and I think that's close enough to someone who is a person with Alzheimer's that they would fit into that category.
Yeah, definitely. The only reason I knew is I had about 3 or 4 people say, you need to apply for this. We want to admit you. And I thought, I need to find out more about it. And so I called and talked with Helen and said, can you give me more details on this? And it sounds very interesting. So who knows? I'll probably throw my hat in the ring, too. But who knows what will happen with all of that. There's lots of good people out there. And, it's all about getting the right mix.
I think this was very much, the first round was very much sort of almost inside Washington in terms of people wanting to be on it or being aware of it. And I think there's now a great deal more information about this advisory council, clearly more awareness generally, in significant part because of your show about what's going on. So I think that there will be a lot more interest in people coming on to this advisory council. And I think that's good. As I outlined earlier, we work through networks and coalitions and believe that this is a team sport to defeat this disease. So I think the more new voices that we can get in to the advisory council, either as members or in some fashion, in some related way that basically continues to have a flow of good ideas coming from the American community into this advisory council process, I think it's all to the good.
Yeah. Well, and we are a broken system, and we do need to think out of the box or throw the box away or reposition the box or whatever, however you want to look at it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, that there's no Republican or Democrat on that advisory council. It's all people who want to do good by Alzheimer's. It's not there's no politics with a big P, R&D kind of thing, and there's no politics with a little p. It is 12 people, indeed 15 people from government agencies. So it's 27 people total. That are dedicated to doing a better job than we've been doing with respect to Alzheimer's. But all the answers are not going to come from the government. We're not going to get a drug or a treatment from the government. We're not going to get investment in basic research. The basic research is going to be in academic labs or in corporate labs. It's not going to, except for a very tiny amount, actually be government employees that do that research. So there's a large community out there of people that have to work together in concert with a common goal and with a common sense of urgency for us to defeat this disease.
I agree. I can't believe our hour is just about up. We need to talk about how can our listeners join you and support Us Against Alzheimer's. What can they do, George?
Well, I would say go to our homepage, Us Against Alzheimer's, and just join. You will find that by joining, you will get probably an email a week on specific actions that you can take to actually influence this process, so that we do keep a pretty regular flow. And we're finding that of 60,000+ people now that are members, that every week there are about 10,000, 15,000 people who take action. And that really has a difference in Washington, because we heard on our first walk through all the senators' offices a few years ago that they didn't hear from constituents. Well, damn it, they're hearing from constituents now, and they need to hear from constituents more often and with greater voice. So go to UsAgainstAlzheimer's.org and just hit the join button.
Well, and I think that's a misnomer too. Is people think, okay, I did it once, that's all I have to do. But it really is a consistent mode of hearing this voice, so that they understand the importance of it. And people have to get more confident about talking about this and more comfortable in having the conversation and in sharing this information. Your organization has made it so easy for people to get engaged and to be politically active and to understand and believe that they have the power, in this group to make a significant change and to let a large voice be heard. And like I said, I've been amazed at through your emails how simple you have made it and how easy you've made it for each individual to share it with others if they choose to do that. Which again,
thank you, Lori, and thank you for doing what you do.
Well, it's important. Like, there's no way I could do what you're doing, and so I marvel at it, and I just think it's absolutely wonderful. And any way that I can help support what it is you're doing, I'll do that in a heartbeat, because this has to change. We can't keep going on like this. It's going to be just devastating. It is right now to many, but it's going to get worse if we don't start changing mindsets and if we don't start giving people hope. I loved what you had said earlier about, I don't want people just to be fearful of this. There is a hopeful side, and that's, to me, critical. We can't be a society driven by fear. I think we have so much more power, and we get so much more creative when we feel there's hope. And when we have strong leaders like you, Lori. Well, like all of us, and all of our listeners as well. So I thank you so much for being on the show. So you can go to www.USAgainstAlzheimer's.org, or if you want to email them directly, that would be at takeaction@usagainstAlzheimer's.org. Again, that's takeaction@usagainstAlzheimer's.org. And please go to their Facebook page, and all you have to do is, in the search bar, put Us Against Alz, and they will pop right up. Follow them on Twitter. Be a power. Each person out there listening has the power to make the difference. And when we join forces with others, the power just becomes mightier. The voice won't die. And things are changing. I feel very hopeful. I cannot believe how much things have changed just in the last couple of years. For us to be even having this conversation and for people to be joining forces and really holding hands all around the world is amazing to me at all different levels. So, again, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're extremely busy, but it was just an honor to have you with us today, George. It's my pleasure. Okay, have a wonderful Easter holiday if you celebrate that. Otherwise, just enjoy the weekend, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks. You too. Bye-bye. I'm going to go ahead and roll into our next guest here, who I'm very excited to have with us. Bakhus Saba is someone I've known probably for a couple of years via social media. That seems to connect me and most of my guests here, is just hearing about all the wonderful work that people are doing. Bakhus started caregiving back in 2004 for his mother. And in 2011, he had to make probably one of the most difficult decisions of his life, and that was to place his mother in a long-term care community. When he went through this process, and all of us can just imagine what that must have been like, a song was created called Still a Child, which was written in July of 2011 and then released in March. And it's sung by the Laws. Now, Bakhus and the Laws are up in Canada, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. But for Bakhus, that wasn't quite enough. And so he went on to create a brand new caregiver video that he just released on Wednesday called Alzheimer's and Dementia Knows No Boundaries. And it's set to the song, and it has a variety of families kind of sharing their story about the disease. Bakhus continues to visit his mom each and every morning in her long-term care community, and he's just kind of a little marvel. He has some big ideas and visions, and so I want to go ahead and welcome Bakhus to the show. How are you doing, Bakhus?
Hi, Lori. Thank you for having me on your show. You had George there, and I want to thank George for all he's doing, and Trish and Ginny and Us Against Alzheimer's. I really appreciate what they did this week. They posted the video on their site, and it did get a lot of hits and likes, and a lot of people really got touched with that video. So I really want to thank them. And again, thank you for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for joining us. Like I said, it's been just fun getting to know you over the past couple of years, and you and the Laws were on the show. Gosh, when the song launched, which was just a absolutely gorgeous song that you wrote. Can you tell people maybe a little bit about your journey first with your mom and how this has led you to where you are today?
Well, it started in 2004, and when it first started, I noticed the memory loss, and then she would not do things that normally she would do, and then all of a sudden it felt like it was overnight. She stopped doing everything, like the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, stuff that I never had to take care of, stuff that I never bothered with. And she had been with me all my life, so she'd been living with me. So that part was difficult. I had to learn how to do all of that stuff. And she wouldn't even go downstairs to the laundry room to do laundry. So it felt like stuff that I needed to do, and kind of a blessing in a way, because I needed to learn how to do that stuff. And then it got to the point, and through all of this, I knew nothing about advocacy. I knew nothing about what's going on with Alzheimer's, and other than that, I did some volunteer work at the Alzheimer's Association, picking up the guitar with a friend, and we'd go do an hour of music for the Alzheimer's Association. I did that for a number of years, but it's not like when you are directly involved with taking care of somebody. Anyway, this led up to 2011 when I couldn't do it anymore. It just wore me right out, and I had to place Mom, I think for the purpose for safety and stuff like a gas stove. You don't want to have them all of a sudden think I have to cook, and then they turn on the stove and forget about that. So I had to think of that. And then the medications and making sure she was going to be fed on time, all things that, and then job-wise, I pretty well had given up. I wasn't doing my job at work, so I put that aside because what was important was taking care of her. But anyway, after all of that said and done, I did get the call from a long-term facility. The first one I turned down, and it was the second one which I felt was the right one and it was the right choice because they are just great in that facility. The caregivers, the place itself, it's nice and clean. So I did the right choice that way. And they are taking good care of her. I visit her every morning, and she makes my day. If I'm down, I look so forward to going there in the morning to visit. And it's usually about an hour and a half. So that's a lot of fun. And I try to go in there with a positive attitude, happy attitude, and she's very sweet, and they love her in there. So it's all good, that part.
Yep, that makes it much easier. But, that whole decision process is just so difficult. No matter how you slice it, it's just not an easy decision to make at all.
It's a difficult decision, Lori, for anybody. What made it difficult for me is she had been with me all my life. I'm 53, so for 54. For 52 years, she was with me. It's kind of a tradition in our Lebanese society that usually the mom stays with the person that's single. I'm single. I'm not married, so she would stay with me, and that's just the way it is. And I loved it, having her with me and all of that. So it was heartbreaking. But anyway, with video and everything, that was interesting because it gave me a look at everybody that's in the video. And I was carrying this for like about 3-4 months, all these stories of caregivers, loved ones, and it kind of touched my heart. For 3-4 months, I'm looking at the stories of each person, and they are amazing, from the caregiver to their loved ones. Just amazing. And I think you can imagine that if you're sitting, and I'm sitting here right now with all the hard copies of everybody, because I want to make sure I have all the names right and the stories, and it's just beautiful. But anyway, that's where my story is, and I am an advocate. I will do everything I can to go from awareness to the next step, and that's we need to do more for this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
I totally agree.
We need to do more.
So Bakhus, what kind of response have you been getting from the video?
Well, I think it's touching a lot of people that have been caregivers, that have lost loved ones, and are doing it currently. The big thing I'm getting, there's a lot of tears. There's a lot of crying going on. And I've done that actually the last couple of days. It's hit home pretty hard. But yeah, there's many, especially on my site right now. Everybody that's posted on their site, it comes back to my site, and I'm looking at all of this, and I'm just amazed at the comments. So I hope it'll continue, and we don't forget, like we remember that there is many people affected by this. And
I don't think it'll be going away anytime soon. I posted it a lot on Facebook, and the comments there, I sent it out to my 50 groups, as well as posting it, on LinkedIn, I should say, to my 50 groups and Facebook, and a lot of people sharing a lot of nice comments, people thanking you for your work and how beautiful it is, and they can't wait to share it with others. Can you tell us how did you come about deciding to do the video? And I should again mention the name. It's called Alzheimer's and Dementia Knows No Borders. And
yes. I just felt the song needed something like this. Something that, the song touches people itself, but I needed pictures. I needed people to feel the love that they have for their loved ones. Each person showed that with their story. And there is a tremendous loss. I don't know, like if you read every story, you see that. And you got a video like this, you got to touch on people's emotions. And you need everybody to feel what everybody here in this video are feeling. So I needed the pictures, and I felt like it needed to be written like a book, as if you're reading it. And the fellow that did it was a young fellow by the name of Andre DePlante. I think he's just turning 24 years old. And it was just a chance meeting, Lori, that I met him. He purchased a house from me. I sell real estate. I'm a realtor. And he purchased it in October. And once he mentioned that he's a video person, it just clicked. I knew I had to have him, and he was young. And he wanted to be on board on all of this. Also, it was all done pro bono. He knew how important it was to do this. So I got to thank Andre for doing such a fabulous job.
It is amazing, the people that will donate their time to a good cause to help things. It really is absolutely wonderful to be able to do that. I know it touches my heart every time, you know, I hear that and see the various aspects, and everyone's always amazed. But sometimes we just have to have the conversation, you know, and say what it is we need, because a lot of times there are individuals out there willing to help. You know, that whole greater good type concept on that. Now, I know we have Cynthia Gilly on the line. Is it okay if I pull her in? She is part of your video.
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Say hi to Cynthia. Okay. Oh, yeah, very much
Let me just get her live here. Hi, Cynthia. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lori. Thank you for having me on the show. Hi, Bakhus.
Hi, Cynthia. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? It's good to hear your voice.
You're amazing.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Yeah, you've been taking care of the video quite well on your site.
Oh,
and I think,
well, it's an honor and a pleasure to be a part of it, Bakhus. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of it.
I think the video, Cynthia, was really made by all the caregivers and their loved ones. It really was. They really made the whole video, all of you.
Well, we've been getting so much positive feedback on it. It's just wonderful. Everybody just loves it.
Well, that's good. How did Bakhus? How did you and Cynthia connect? Was it through social media?
Yes, it was through Facebook. You know what, Cynthia? I can't remember. You must have sent a friendship, or did I send a friendship request?
You know, I don't remember, Bakhus. It was, gosh, it's been about 9 months now, I guess. Not too long. But we've corresponded quite a bit through Facebook, so I feel like, you know, I know Bakhus, and I feel like I know you too, Lori.
Uh-huh.
That's funny how social media is.
Yeah. Cynthia, can you tell people a little bit about your personal story and, you know, how you became part of the video?
Sure. I was actually working at assisted living as an activities director when my father started having some health problems. And long story short, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 11 years ago. And I've been his primary caregiver now for 11 years. I pick him up every day and bring him over I pick him up 5 days a week. It used to be 6 days. And get him up, bathe him, dress him. He's in the severe stage now, so he has to be bathed and dressed and everything. He feeds himself. He walks with assistance, and he comes to my house and just stays here all day. And then I take him back home to my mom, and she cares for him at night. We do have a little bit of help in the evening to help her because she is on up in age herself. So. And that's our journey so far. In fact, Daddy's in the other room right now, sitting down napping. He just ate his little sausage biscuit from McDonald's, and now he's napping. He sleeps quite a bit. So when he's sleeping, I'm on the computer doing my thing.
Okay. Now, Cynthia, you also have on Facebook the Alzheimer's Caregiver. You want to tell people about the Alzheimer's Caregiver?
Sure, I'd love to. 9 months ago, I became basically a full-time consultant to the Alzheimer's Caregiver, which is a website, www.alzheimerscaregiver.com, that teaches people how to care for Alzheimer's patients, whether it's your loved ones at home or people in assisted living and nursing homes and hospice and all that, to train their folks how to care for their loved ones properly. The folks that actually, their videos, they're short internet videos, and the folks that were involved in that were all medical doctors and PhD level nurses. So some real top-notch, you know, well-educated folks to help caregivers. And I can't say enough wonderful things. It's made me a better caregiver to my dad. I love it. It's not a job, it's a passion. I feel like I should be paying them to work for them. I love it so much.
Can you tell people in a little bit more detail in terms of like the website and what all it has to offer?
Sure. The website has 32 volumes of it's basically an encyclopedia on the internet with 32 volumes of information dealing from every aspect of Alzheimer's and the related dementias, from learning how to manage wandering, managing behavioral issues, managing communication, everything you go through with Alzheimer's and the dementias will be in this website, and the videos will teach you how to manage each stage of the disease. And I can tell you, Lori, it's manageable. It's a manageable disease. I wish I had the Alzheimer'sCaregiver.com in my pocket when I started out 11 years with Daddy, because I can't tell you some of the issues, and you all know because you all have been through it too, the issues that go with this disease. The wandering itself is terrifying. Daddy actually wandered out of the house at 2 o'clock in the morning one time. And my mother's deaf in one ear. She did not hear him. And luckily we had family next door that heard the alarm go off. Mom didn't even hear the alarm. And, scenarios like this are so dangerous for our folks that have this disease, because ultimately, they could end up dying, and a lot of them do. They get in, some scary situations, and a lot of times they don't. There's not a happy ending to the end.
Mhm. Now, have you been getting? I think that the Alzheimer's Caregiver just has a wealth of knowledge base there, and so I would recommend that people go and check that out. What's the direct URL to get to that?
It's www.thealzheimerscaregiver.com.
Okay, so it's thealzheimerscaregiver.com.
Correct.
Okay.
And we have a Facebook. We're the Alzheimer's Caregiver on Facebook, and please like our page. We love for people to like our page.
Okay, will do. Well, thank you for joining us and being part of the video in and of itself.
Well,
have
thank
you talked
you.
with? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Lori.
I was going to ask you, have you talked with any others that have been part of the video? Have you connected with other participants at all?
On Facebook, I have a little bit. I'm going to more, but you two are the only ones that I've actually talked to on the telephone. So.
Mhm. Okay. And Bakhus, I'm sure you've talked to everybody more than once.
Yes, I have. I think the trying to get it in perfect, and boy, that's and you're dealing like with 16 people, so I've had to really be in touch with everybody. Yes, and just amazing. It works by message on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So I was getting, if I see somebody online, I would message them if I needed anything, that type of thing. So, yeah, Facebook has been very good to me. I would never be on Facebook if it wasn't for this. It never existed before for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is good that way. I was just looking at Cynthia's story here. Dad loved singing, passionate about the church, pretty important this weekend for Easter, and gardening, and devoted and compassionate to others. He's a retired from the Air Force. Amazing, Cynthia.
I'm sorry?
Just amazing. It's just amazing.
He's a wonderful
and you look
father.
At the picture. Yeah, you look at the picture and it's so beautiful. just beautiful with with Cynthia and her dad Ted is the name.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, good. I know I've got some great response.
I'm sorry, Lori.
Yeah, I was just saying I've gotten a great response from people that I know as well regarding the video. It's just been kind of fun, and it was also just a really nice piece for people to be able to capture and have. So now this is a piece for us as a family we'll always have because we were lucky enough to be part of it as well. And so that's so I thank you for that. That was kind of fun to be able to do. I did just put in the website for the Alzheimer's caregiver.com, and I'll put it in the blog as well so that people can find that. I had a couple of
Thank you. I
requests on that.
appreciate that.
Now, we do have a question from somebody, so I'm going to, Cynthia, I'm going to go ahead and put you on hold, and I'm going to pull in another caller, okay?
And thank you so much for having me in. And Bakhus, thank you so much for letting Daddy and me participate in this. It was just an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome, Cynthia, and it's an honor for me. It really is.
Okay, we've got a caller from an 865 number. Did you have a question? Is there someone from an 865 number that had a question or a comment? Okay, I'll go ahead and put them on hold. Sounds like they have their computer on in the background with that, so they would need to mute that. But they might just be calling in and listening that way. Sometimes that happens as well on that. I wanted to just talk with you a little bit more regarding how you decided to lay the video out. You had mentioned that you wanted it in a book fashion, and you had asked for specific things from people. Can you share what it was you were looking for, and then how you reached out to people? How were people chosen to be in the book?
The way they were chosen is I put it on Facebook. I was looking for pictures and of caregivers and their loved ones. I needed that together. I started, I think you were probably the first one right away. And Cynthia came in the picture, and she said, I got two friends that are on my site here that would take part in this, and it was Deborah and a younger person by the name of Crystal, and her mom is Maria, 54 years old, Lori, and she passed away. It's a very heartbreaking story, and when you read it, it will touch you. From New Mexico, Silver City, New Mexico. So it just snowballed one from the other. And then I had a couple local people here that I knew, Tim and Ann. I never knew Tim until this summer, but I had worked with Ann for a number of years, and I didn't know she had Alzheimer's. So that's probably one local person, and Lisa, who I work with here in the office, and her mom, who plays piano, and her sister is in that. But other than that, the rest pretty well from Facebook. It was kind of cool to get England involved, and that was Claire, Norm, special Norm, her Norm. And everybody knows Norm. I think you've had him on your talk.
Norm McNamara, yep.
So he was right away. Yeah, I'll be involved in this. So it did come together real quick, that part on Facebook. I think what's really important about this video is I hope that when people see it, that they can go to a long-term facility and maybe pay a little extra visit to a loved one there, volunteer, and just give them a hug and just let them know that you love them and care for them. That's so important. And the other thing is 21st of September. I think I got the day right. There's walkathons going on with the Alzheimer's Association. A good time to raise funds.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other purpose is healthcare, I feel, is in real trouble for the future. Here in Canada also and in the States. This number here, Lori, is mind-boggling. People turning 65 as of 2011. In the U.S., 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 every day, every single day. That is
a lot of people.
Yes, it is. So there's a generation behind us that need to take care of the baby boomers. So we need to step up big time.
Yep.
So hopefully this will help in doing that.
We've got a comment. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm pretty well there.
Okay.
Sorry, Lori, there is one other thing. Government leaders, I hope, will watch this video and just see that there's an urgency, and the urgency is in research and just care. There's waiting lines to get into long-term facilities, and that is so important that they look at this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Deborah DeLash just is noting in the chat box here that she found out about the your video through the Alzheimer's Caregiving Network on Facebook, and she just said that it was wonderful. She worked in a skilled nursing facility and as a CNN and nursing staff, and she believes that they would really appreciate this video, as well as family caregivers as well. So I did just put in the link in the chat box as well, but for whatever reason it's not hot linking it. Or you can go to YouTube and find it, and just put in Alzheimer's Knows No Borders, or you can go to Alzheimer's Speaks blog, and it's there as well too. So. And you can go to just about any page on Facebook, I think, that has something to do with Alzheimer's disease, and it's on there as well. So it's made the rounds, which is wonderful. It's had a great impact with that. Are you thinking of doing another one at all, or is that?
I would like very much to do it as a series, and. I think I can get the pictures. There will be a lot more pictures, especially after this one. The next one, I'd like to keep the same kind of a format. And I think in between pictures, maybe after 5 pictures, I would like to put a little bit of information, information that we all need, like maybe what are the things to look for Alzheimer's, dementia, what do you look for? What are the signs? Just little tidbits like that in between pictures. It'll just break up the pictures a little bit. So I would like to keep it in that kind of a format. Maybe the next one, call it We Are Your Voice. That might be something like that. As far as music in the background, that might be difficult. I don't know how you can talk to a child. So it might be just strictly music that I've had over the years.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who have written music that might let you use their song to set to.
Yes, Richard Romaine comes to mind right off the top of my head.
And, Rick Phelps has his song, too, While I Still Can. Joseph Portelli has a song over in Australia as well. So, yeah, there's lots of different songs out there.
I think I'll do that. Lori, the real tricky part about this when I was doing it is putting the pictures in the right spot. That was difficult. because of the timing. I thought I only needed maybe about 5, 6, 7 seconds for each picture. As it turned out, when you're reading it, and you've got to be a fairly fast reader, it's about 12 seconds per picture. So it was tricky in doing that. So the young fellow did a real good job that way.
Yeah, I think what would be interesting too is to have ones with younger people, just because a lot of the stories, when I was looking at it, were people a little bit older, and that's kind of what most people think this disease is about. But even getting that younger face, those 40s and 50s and 60s, might be a nice way to raise awareness and change perceptions as well in terms of the disease.
You mentioned Deborah there, and her mom, if I'm correct, was around 67. But anyway, it was interesting. She sent me like about 4 or 5 pictures, and I had to make a choice. And I thought the picture that with her in her wedding gown, with her mom and dad, and her dad has passed away also. But anyway, that was interesting because she sent me a picture of her mom as a child, as a child actor. And that was amazing to see that picture among a whole bunch of kids that were actors. That was interesting. Yeah.
All of them are just so nice and so poignant. I mean, I'm looking at the one right now with my mom and my daughter and I on her birthday and stuff. And, Mom's been in her end stages for 4 years, but she still pulls out, and she still has those joyous moments. And, those are the things as caregivers that we have to learn to understand and appreciate and love and, try to do our best to help the next guy through the process here. Bacchus, if people want to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Facebook is probably the best way. Bakhus Saba. I think you can friend me on there. And I do have an email. The only thing about the email is I don't know which ones to open, because you open something and all of a sudden it's a virus or something. And then,
so Facebook's probably the best route. And so it would be Bakhus, which is Bakhus,
US, and last name's Saba.
Okay. And so you can just put that in, and if there's, I don't know if there's more than one Bakhus Saba, but you're in Ontario, Canada?
Yes, it's a fairly rare name, somewhat. Okay. There is one other person, a couple people that I do want to thank, and that's John and Michelle Law. They, John, as you know, is singing the song. We sat at a kitchen table to write this song, and we knew that it was going to touch a lot of people. So I really want to thank them for making this really happen.
Yep. What were their thoughts when have they seen the video?
Yes. Well, they knew that's the type of video that was needed for the song. I think when I did the first video that's out there, it was more that I needed to get it out there. And I wasn't on Facebook, so I just needed to get the song out there at the time. So, but this is the real deal. This is the video that was needed for the song.
Yeah, really, very, very well done. Very powerful. Very powerful.
Hey, Lori, if I can just add one thing, this gives me something that I can get hard copies of. And initially, I'm probably going to make about 100 hard copies, so that way I can send a few out to the caregivers. And I really want to get it out to certain spots, people like Ellen, Oprah. I want to get it to certain government leaders. I think there's a Bob Corker in the States. There's a whole bunch of spots that I want to get it to. And the other thing that I would really like is some of the baby boom musicians from the 60s and 70s to kind of step it up and maybe do something at a larger scale for this disease and for healthcare. And I feel I would love to have them step it up, some of these people, and I'll probably try and get some of that out that way. If it gets to them, I don't know.
So if people have connections, to go ahead and contact you, because you don't have a problem drafting a letter and shipping something out to them, maybe getting an introduction, that would be wonderful. Wonderful to do. The more we can work together, the better we can be with all of this. So yeah, I think that's wonderful. Well,
it's amazing. Hey, Laurie, thank you, though. It's amazing with a baby boom population that's getting old, how we have to cater to that. And you being a realtor, I don't know if you noticed how we had to cater to the housing needs there right through late 80s to even now. Back when I first started in real estate, townhouses were a rarity. Now they're all over. So now we have to cater for health care big time. So we need to do that.
Yep. Well, that's great. We all have to work together. There's no doubt about that. I've actually been out of real estate now for a few years, and just do this all, full time. You're doing a great job. What I was meant to do is just keep building these platforms and raising everyone's voice with this. So again, I thank you for all of the work that you're doing, and your passion behind it is so strong. So again, if people want to reach out to Bakhus, it's Bakhus, and the last name is Saba, Saba, and just put that in the search bar on Facebook. You can go ahead and connect with him. And again, if you have some contacts, he's got hard copies. He'd love to be able to share this and get the word spread, and again raise awareness with all of this. So thank you again for your time, Bakhus. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for all you're doing too, Laurie. It's amazing what you're doing. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank all
a great
the caregivers.
weekend.
Hey, Laurie, I want to thank all the caregivers for being part of this.
Okay.
Without them, it would never have been. Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye.
In wrapping up the show today, I just want to tell people about some upcoming shows that we're having as well. And I also had a fantastic show just earlier this week with Gary Glazner on the Art Poetry Project. And then I had Angel on, who Tackney Ritchie, who is the author of Behind This Old Face. And that was a really wonderful show. So if you haven't listened to that, I would highly recommend that you do, again, as well as maybe going to the recording of the Dementia Chats, where we interview people with dementia, and participants are able to ask questions. Again, in the live session, you're able to do that. In the recording session, I think you'll just get a lot of wonderful information on that. Coming up in the future here for shows, on the 5th, we're going to have a show on transgender needs. And then on the 11th, we're going to be talking about Dare to Care. We'll have the author of that book along with Dr. Donald Moss, who is in the process of research, and he's got some really promising research. I had mentioned him earlier in the show, where he actually went out of the States to do clinical trials just because of the expense here. And so we'll have some wonderful conversations. On the 18th, we are also going to have Alzheimer's Disease International on. They are having their conference over in China. And so that'll be a very interesting conversation with Executive Director Mark Wortman and a few others from China who will be calling in and letting us know how the conference is going. Our next Dementia Chats is scheduled for the second Tuesday of April, and so that will be on the 9th. And once again, if you're looking for an Alzheimer's Association and some additional resources, you can go to Alzheimer's Disease International. You can just Google that, or go to www.alz.co.uk, And there you'll find all the organizations all over the world. And they've got some wonderful, wonderful resources that they can provide as well as the reports that George was referring to. And, of course, I would be amiss to not redirect you to go to US Against Alzheimer's and go sign the petition, sign up for their newsletter. They have great, great information there. Last I want to mention is there was a webinar, and actually it was an interactive play that was put on, and I will be posting that as soon as they get the recording live, but extremely powerful. And for whatever reason, I am going brain dead on the name right now. It's off just a hair, and I don't want to mispronounce it, but it's a very, very powerful video in which people with dementia kind of speak their truth in a play-type fashion. And I think you'll really enjoy it quite a bit. So have a relaxing holiday weekend, and if you celebrate Easter with your family and friends, I hope you enjoy that. If not, just have a fabulous weekend. And again, remember, this disease is here to teach us about progress, not perfection, and that by working together, we can and are making a difference. So have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye now.
Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer's Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer's Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.